Pratyaks wrote to see turned inwards, Atmani in the mind, Samvidavyam meditated upon. Perceive, Satejasa by your own potency, Prasta manage, Guna Prabhaham, the influence of the modes of material nature. One day I offer obeisance to Vishnu, unto Lord Vishnu, Satyam, named the Veda Garvam, repository of the Vedas. I believe, my Lord, that you are the Lord, that you are Lord Vishnu himself, under the name of Kapila. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supreme Brahman. The saints and sages, being free from all the disturbances of the senses and mind, meditate upon you. For by your mercy only can one become free from the clutches of the three modes of materialization. At the time of dissolution, all ways are sustained in you only. Report by the divine version of God. Devahuti, the mother of Kapila, prolonging her prayers, summarized that Lord Kapila is none other than Vishnu, and that since she was a woman, it was not possible for her to worship him properly simply by prayer. It was her intention that the Lord be satisfied. The word pratyak is significant. In yogic practice, the 8 divisions are yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Pratyahara means to wind up the activities of the senses. The level of realization of the Supreme Lord, evidenced by Devahuti, is possible when one is able to withdraw the senses from material activities. When one is engaged in devotional service, there is no scope for his senses to be engaged otherwise. In such full Krishna consciousness, one can understand the Supreme Lord as he is. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalagaya Chakshurmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Didati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sahagana Raganatan Vidam Dam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vidhamscha He Krishna Guna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Dhapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Dibyat Vrindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Ratnagara Singhasanastho Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Pestalabi Sevyamano Smarami Tam tam aham brahma param pumam sam pratyakshotasi atmani samvivavyam svateja sadvasta guna pravaham vande vishnum kapilam veda garbham. I believe, my Lord, that you are Lord Vishnu himself under the name of Kapila, and you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Brahman. The saints and sages, being freed from all the disturbances of the senses and mind, meditate upon you, for by your mercy only can one become free from the clutches of the 3 modes of material nature. At the time of dissolution, all the Vedas are sustained within you. Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here, or describing, or giving us a view of Devahuti's intention. It was Devahuti's intention that the Lord be satisfied. It is not what we do as much as the motivation by which we do it. If we are doing simply to please Krishna, please the devotees, please the spiritual master, that is defined as pure devotional service, and the characteristic of that, interestingly enough, even though it is on the highest platform, it is the most simple and easy, simplistic, simple-hearted, simple for the simple, difficult for the crooked, for those with ulterior motives. And we just see previously, even though she is admitting, and it is observed, that she isn't or cannot go forward with more prayers, more voluminous prayers. What she just spoke was, practically speaking, the most glorious and highest realizations of any devotees that we see in Srimad Bhagavatam and other allied scriptures. He lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. So, pure devotees, they are on the same platform as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, beyond the influence of time. And as we were saying some days before, that throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam and other allied Vedic literatures, we see the prediction or heralding of the topmost appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even though he's known, as Prahlad Maharaj says, as Tri Yuga, the Lord who only appears in 3 yugas, Satya, Treta, and Dwarpa, perhaps the most glorious incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Chana avatar, comes in the worst of all ages, the Kali Yuga, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who disguised himself simply as a Brahmin and then later as a sannyasi. And even when he was addressed or identified as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he very vehemently protested. And he presented himself as Gopi Bharta Bhatta Kamalayor Das Anudas Anudas. I am simply the servant of the servant of the servant, so many times removed, of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who maintains the Gopi damsels of Vrindavan. And Prabhupada in the 2nd canto describing that utterance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that is the way of self-realization. Oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name, even if born in the family of dog-eaters. Such persons are worshipable. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started the ball rolling in decrying and protesting and tuchavad, showing as insignificant this caste Goswami Brahmanism that had strangled Vedic culture for such a long time and up to that point. It's described in the 1st canto in regards to the unjust cursing of Maharaj Parikshit to die within 7 days, that demons taking advantage of the Kali Yuga took birth in so-called Brahmin families to deviate and derail Vedic culture. And my goodness, they've done a very good job of it. Destroyed India into the partition of India into Pakistan by saying that Brahmanism is hereditary, and those who are not in that caste, they should be subjugated, and they should be manipulated and used by the so-called, they themselves, higher caste Brahmanism. And all subsequent Goswamis and Acharyas down the line also continued this fight. What is the fight? It's a glorious fight. Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice and a predominant rise of irreligion in the guise, in the false dress of so-called religion, Brahman, down to the present day. Srila Prabhupada said, my spiritual master's contribution that he vehemently protested this caste Goswamiism. And for that, he was attacked. They tried to kill him in Navadvip, in Mayapur. The whole party was attacked. You can see the information. And then later in Vrindavan on Brajmandal Prikram in 1932, all of the temples closed their doors and would not allow Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and his party to enter, save and except one, the Radharaman Mandir, which to this day we have a very wonderful relationship. The devotees in the Saraswat line and the Goswamis of Radharaman, which was originally set up 500 years ago by Gopal Bhatta Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis himself. Persons who chant the holy name of your Lordship must have executed all kinds of austerities and fire sacrifice and achieved all the good manners of the Aryans. A very important clue or shining evidence for those who are somewhat aware is that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says in Adi Leela chapter 7, the Lord advents only with his pure devotees, his associates, ultimately from Goloka Vrindavan Dham. You can look at the Gora Gonadesh Deepika by Kavi Karnapur, the youngest son of Shivananda Sain, who Lord Chaitanya allowed him as a baby to suck his big toe, among other mercies. Imagine if you could have, as a baby, taken the feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in that way, how glorious he would be. So he, among so many of his literatures, gave a catalog of all the devotees of Krishna Leela, who they became in Chaitanya Leela. The opportunity, the rasa, the mellow, the taste of devotional service to Krishna is so unique in coming to this world in the spirit of a preacher and in the, based upon what Krishna wanted to experience and accomplish by taking the role of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which he couldn't experience from his position of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, is so special that his devotees wish to accompany him to experience that mellow rasa. So only with those devotees does Lord Chaitanya propound his Sankirtan movement of distribution of the holy name. Only with them, not others, or those who are meant to come to participate are meant to be rectified, elevated, and brought to the same platform. To be chanting the holy name of your Lordship, they must have bathed at all holy places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled everything required. Here is one, or perhaps two, time constraints considered, examples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's very fierce preaching but, so to speak, candy-coated in an instructive story. This one is called Naked Pencho. In a village, there lived a boy named Panchaman. In tropical land, small boys in their early age move around naked. Panchaman, as a boy of 5 years, used to go naked all the time. So the neighbors were fond of calling him Naked Pencho. Charming. However, Pencho was a very good boy in his studies and general habits. Every year, he used to get the topmost position in school and naturally became very dear to most of his neighbors. But some of the neighbors were not on good terms with Pencho's father. So this seems like, like a detail of the story, but it has, as you'll see in the purport, very, very important meaning also, sedantically wise. Every time they listened to any appreciation of Pencho, they became very agitated and used to say, "Oh, hang your naked Pencho. Don't mention his studies." So now he's not naked anymore and he's going to school, and when it's reported that he's in the topmost position and he's getting very good grades, they just continue to refer to him as Naked Pencho. And that will continue on and on and on as Pencho ascends to the highest position, as you will see. Within a few years, Panchaman attained a degree of law and took to the legal profession as a pleader, as a lawyer in the court of law. When the inimical neighbors of Panchaman's father came to hear this news, they remarked, "Pencho must have passed the examination by cheating." Panchaman Babu was gradually promoted to the position of a district judge. So we know in the description of Bhaktivinoda Thakur becoming the district magistrate for the district, including the temple of Lord Jagannath in Jagannath Puri, it's described that this position was practically equal to the governor. Then the hearts of those envious people burned with jealousy. They pulled their faces and shouted, "Oh, hang your cock and bull stories. How could that whippersnapper become a district judge?" When the name of district judge, the Honorable Mr. Panchaman, was shown to them on some authentic court papers, they cried vociferously, "Naked Pencho," so he's still naked, even he's the district judge, in their mind, "must be working as a judge without any remuneration." So I guess we all must be completely wondering and with bated breath wondering what the purport is. So wait no longer, here it is. Any Vaishnava who has surrendered himself unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, or any person who has been duly initiated into the Maha Mantra under a real spiritual master, according to the Pancharatriki scriptures, should never be subjected to any sort of caste distinction. So when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati started initiating, giving diksha to people from Sudra class, Vaishya class, the Brahmins severely criticized and protested. How can you do this? And what to speak of Srila Prabhupada when he was initiating American and European, Asian, African, etc. What to speak of those not in the Brahmin class, those who are considered outside the caste division completely, being Malechas and Yavanas by so-called consideration. As depicted in the story just narrated, Panchaman Babu was wrongly considered to be a naked Pencho, even when he became a respectable court judge. And it was also an unfounded assumption that Panchaman could never become a court judge only because his father was not on good terms with his neighbors. So they're envious of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, envious of Srila Prabhupada. So therefore, all of his disciples is not. This is nothing but a reflection of one's jealousy. One who is a Vaishnava, even born of a low caste, should never be looked down upon as a lowly person. I like to quote from time to time the description of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the Antya Leela, Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 6. Pradyumna Mishra instructed by Ramananda Roy. Ramananda Roy, even though he was in a high government position, by so-called caste, was considered a Sudra. Pradyumna Mishra was born in a high-class Brahmin family. And it's not said so, but I'm sure Pradyumna Mishra understood that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the father of Jagannath Mishra, was a Brahmin by birth. So he wants to go to him and say, I want to hear the topics that you discussed with Ramananda Roy. It's not actually stated, but you can, it seems that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu corrected him. It's not that I told to Ramananda Roy these things, but actually it was the other way around. I went to hear from him. And because Pradyumna Mishra, he's a devotee, and he wasn't, call Roto-Rooter to unclog the sewer, He wasn't all stuffed up with all this nonsense in his head. He took the, not just advice, but the instruction to go hear from Ramananda Roy. And he did, and the result was astounding. And then when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the report from Pradyumna Mishra, he said, yes, this is the position of Ramananda Roy. So Kaviraj Goswami, to diminish and defeat the pride of the caste Brahmins, Lord Chaitanya likes to exhibit the excellence of the topmost position of spiritual life through those who are seemingly outside or ostracized from Vedic culture. Rupa and Sanatan, because of their being implicated in the Muslim government, were ostracized from Brahminical society, but he made them the Rasa Acharyas. And what to speak of who he made, the supreme authority of his Yuga Dharma, that he came to this world to introduce the Dharma of this age, and it's the supreme Dharma for all of time everlasting, the chanting of the holy name, Haridas Thakur. And Prabhupada said, was pleased to take his birth. We think, taking birth in a Muslim family, in a family of it's terrible, it's a punishment, it's a, banishment, it's like, wear the scarlet letter, humiliation for all time everlasting. No, he was pleased to accept his birth. Brahma Haridas, for that matter. To achieve the topmost position, or the lowest position, of humility, after he, Lord Brahma, stole the calves and cowherd boys. So what was his birth from Krishna Leela to Chaitanya Leela? Thakur Haridas, the authority, Prabhupada says in one place, the dean, of the dean of the college, the dean of the authority of the chanting of the holy name. As one single rupee is in existence with an amount of 1 crore of rupees, similarly, the qualities of a Brahmin all exist within a Vaishnava. As such, it is considered to be an offense to blacklist. All right? Blacklist. You're blacklisted. You can't enter India anymore, The devotees went to a particular temple in Vrindavan, two of Prabhupada's brahmachari disciples, American. And the pujari was like, this is in the early days, first seeing. Now you go to the temples in Vrindavan and it's like, everybody's used to it. But 50, 55 years ago, very, very And the Pujari said, "You're such wonderful, you're following Swami Bhaktivedanta like this is very nice. And you keep doing like this, and in your next birth, you can be born in a Brahmin family in Vrindavan." And the devotees didn't know what to make of this, so they went back to Srila Prabhupada and reported this. And Prabhupada said, "You go back and you tell him that you do very nicely, consider continuing your Pujari work, serving the deity very nicely, and in your next birth, you can take birth as a book distributor in America." As such, it is considered to be an offense to blacklist any Vaishnava as a non-Brahmin for any reason whatsoever. In fact, an Uttamadhikari, or a Vaishnava elevated to the highest stage of self-realization, may very well be honored as a Paramahamsa or a truly wise sage. Those who consider themselves servants only to such Paramahamsa Vaishnavas actually abide by the transcendental system of the 8 divisions of Varna and Ashrams created by God. They never pose themselves as Vaishnavas under a sense of vanity. Instead, they consider themselves as servants of Vaishnavas under the Paramahamsa. Even if these persons came of a Sudra, low caste, or social Brahmin family before they took shelter under the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, still it is unreasonable and offensive to introduce or call them Sudras, low caste people, or social Brahmins, recalling their positions in their previous ashrams. One time, one scholar or writer, he went to Srila Prabhupada and wanted permission that he could interview Prabhupada's disciples and, what were they doing before, and where did they come from, and what type of activities were they doing. And Prabhupada said, that is not necessary. Whatever they were doing before, everything was black. But coming to Krishna consciousness, now everything is bright and light. So if you talk to my disciples, you talk to them about what they are doing now. You don't need to refer to what they were doing before. Just like we associate with each other, or we should be associating with each other, based on what we are doing now. We are serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada, we are maintaining his temples, we are keeping up his preaching, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And for that, we're all truly God brothers and God sisters. It's not that you're a such and such devotee from such and such place, or from this social standing, etc., etc. All these transcendental Brahmins who have attained their second birth in order to offer service to the Supreme Lord Sri Hari accept sacred beads, sacred threads, chanting beads, tilak, and the like as per scriptural prescriptions. It's interesting to remember and note here that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said that a face without tilak is like a slaughterhouse. So we should wear tilak, and especially if we are chanting, what to speak of leading the chanting of the kirtan. There should be tilak, one should be wearing it, and one shouldn't be asked repeatedly to put it on. That's an unpaid political announcement from my side. I'm sorry. Those who maintain that Vaishnavas, even if initiated into their new life, must be considered belonging to their own Sudra or such low caste as they were by birth, and that such Vaishnavas should not accept any sacred thread, nor chant Gayatri or Pranav mantra, are similar to such people who prefer to brand the Honorable District Judge Panchaman Babu nearly as a naked pencho. Or the naked pencho would not draw any salary even when he becomes an honorable court judge. This must be known as an envious mentality. Each and every girl moves naked in her very early age, but when the same girl attains her motherhood, then it would be most indecent and offensive to recall her childhood nudity and thus put her to shame. Similarly, it is more offensive, even more offensive, everyone would agree, to refer to a boy or especially a girl as a naked when they achieve adulthood and they're in their honorable life. What type of nasty person are you to do such a thing? So it's even more offensive, and extremely hard-hearted to make an impression about any Vaishnava in light of his previous ashram before taking shelter of initiation into the Krishna mantra. And while we're on the topic, here's another angle of the degradation of the non-Vaishnava Brahmins in this age of Kali. This one's not as long as the naked Pencho story. Where is it? Yes, the ancestral well. A village pandit was very much devoted to his departed father. The pandit used to say, "The Father is the God incarnate. We're enjoying earthly pleasures simply by his mercy only." So here's a dedicated to the ancestors. We see how strong family ties are in India, perhaps other countries, and how if it's not based on actual spiritual advancement, just like the example, the son of the high court judge doesn't make him the high court judge. It's a question of qualification. So the great-grandfather of this pandit had built a draw well for his family's use. In the past, the water drawn from this well happened to be widely known as the sweetest and clearest of all the wells in the village. However, in due course of time, after 3 or 4 generations of the family, covering 150 years or so, the stagnant water of the well became extremely putrid. It was no longer suitable for drinking or general use, as a huge mass of filth, mud, and all types of plants had decomposed in it. 1 or 2 dead frogs also added to the decomposition of the water in the well. As such, it became smelly and completely infested with deadly bacteria. So the story goes on to say how the pandit insisted that all of his sons, grandsons, and even his wife drink from this tub well and no other. In due course of time, they all died. His whole family died. And he himself was severely afflicted with all types of diseases because of himself stubbornly only wanting to drink this water. There was quite a good number of other wells in the village, and the river Ganges was also flowing only a few miles away. Everyone was repeatedly advising the pandit to stop using the water from the contaminated well and to drink water from other tub wells or from the Ganges. By this time, the pandit, due to his fanatical attachment to his ancestral father and forefathers, had totally destroyed his entire family as a result of his obstinacy and die-hard attitude. At last, the local authorities came to destroy the well to ensure good health in the village. When the pandit saw them approaching, he squatted on the well in such an obstinate mood of loyalty to his ancestral forefathers that it appeared to the authorities that not even royal power could ever destroy it. Purport: persons who were adamant in getting initiated from a particular ancestral Goswami also demonstrate such an obstinate attitude. Anyone claiming himself to be one's ancestral spiritual master may not be truly qualified through continual degradation of dignity and position. Devotees of the Lord are placed themselves in the position to be tools used in the hands of the Lord for whatever he likes them to do. Srila Prabhupada, you have brought me here to dance, make me dance as you like. Simply make me an instrument for your will. So here Devahuti has presented these wonderful, wonderful verses which are utilized in our revolutionary preaching movement. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the name, fame, qualities, and glories of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation meant to bring about a revolution in the lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such literatures are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So Narada Muni is instructing Vyasadeva, write the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he understands, Narada Muni, that this glorious narration of Kapila Deva will be part of the narration, ultimately from Maitreya to Vidura, of which this is included, and within the entire opus or presentation of Sri Shukadeva Goswami. So now we will hear the response of Kapila Deva Muni. This is the last prayer, the last statement of Devahuti, and he will praise her and also describe the super excellence and superiority of this process of pure devotional service. It was a very wonderful. We're still in this chapter for quite a number of verses. We'll probably still be in this chapter for the better part of a month, more. But the false Shruti, the description of the dealings of Kapila Deva and his mother is very confidential. And anyone who hears or reads this narration becomes a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is carried by Garuda, and he thereafter enters into the abode of the Supreme Lord to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, the confidentiality that's described here is based upon the power of hearing this narration, which has the power to elevate the hearer also to the same position, ultimately, of pure devotional service. Any questions or comments?
So the class was about a lot about like naked pencho and how there's no such thing as like a certain kind of, a Vaishnav is a Vaishnav, and so you shouldn't.
You got to speak louder.
Vaishnav is a Vaishnav, and so well, what if someone's becoming a Vaishnav, but they kind of hide behind that, but then still they have the lower qualities that are coming out, creating problems.
Where does it say in one place that
or bring it up and then, you're just you're having caste consciousness, but there's actual problems.
What would you like me to say? Can we be more specific?
Like, if Prabhupada's disciples are going over and they're like doing all kinds of dirty things, like there's one example that they were putting on tilak and they spit into their hand, and then they put the tilak on, something like that.
Well, we just, at the preface of this Kapila Deva instruction, chapter 25, the glories of devotional service, there's a whole discussion of the attempt to perform devotional service in the modes of material nature. Kapila Deva said it is impure, it is of the lower or even lowest quality. So, it's kind of an emergency situation. We need to deputize as many people as possible to fight the valiant fight. But it's understood that by doing the activities of the highest order, one will gain the proper authority or qualification, honestly, based on that high activity. And Prabhupada even, he said to the newly initiated into the sannyasa order of life, Tripurari Maharaj in New York in 1976, that I'm giving, also Trista Yumna, he was a sannyasi at the time. It's understood that this is a fight and I need many leading generals, but it's understood that many of you won't make it, but I have to take this risk. From our own individual side, we can always take shelter of our relationship with Krishna, knowing his full protection. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says that the Supreme Lord Gaurasundar puts his devotees into different situations to test their conviction, devotion, strength of mind. Their success depends upon their good fortune. So we see in the life of great devotees that there's all different trials and tribulations. Look at Mother Kunti, Queen Kunti. You have saved us from so many calamities, from our own family. Not her immediate family, but the greater family. So we should always try to be real devotees so that we don't put others into distress. There's a sign on the subway, right? Don't become somebody else's subway story. So don't become somebody else's, oh boy, Prabhu, I got a horror story to tell. I got one even more horrible than yours, Bunch of old timers sitting around and talking about, Actually, I'll just sum it up. The best thing is just to keep moving. Just keep moving forward. And those who are kind of stuck, or those who are, let's say, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So always try to be part of the solution. Is that okay? Anything else? Yes, you have to speak loud so I can hear and everyone else can hear. Oh, is that's
the online.
Okay, but in here speaking a nice stentorian voice, like friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears,
Haribol, thank you. I wanted to ask a question about, you mentioned Lord Brahma, how he took the coward boys from Krishna. And you said there was a connection with that and how he came back with Lord Chaitanya as the teen. Can you talk about that connection again, please?
He's known as Brahma Haridas because it is understood that that's who he is. He's Lord Brahma coming back. And keep in mind, who is the first devotee in our entire sampradaya? Who can say? Huh? That's right. Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya Sampradaya. What is the Brahma Samhita? It is showing the initiation. We see on the cover. So initiation, what are the 4 rules and chant 16 rounds. So Lord Brahma's initiation was hearing the flute song of Govinda in Goloka Vrindavan. One should not consider himself as advanced as Lord Brahma to be initiated directly by Krishna, as described in the second canto, but one can have the same facility. If one actually wants the real, one must approach the current link. The defeat for all the Ritvik, okay, only problem. So why not just, sit down in front of a picture of Rupa Goswami or Lord Chaitanya and be initiated directly by them? Forget all the rest, go right to the best, if one actually wants the real message, the real initiation, one must approach the current link. So that same Lord Brahma, you see how now the demigods are offering their prayers to Lord Krishna. Actually, they've come to the shore of the Garbhodak Ocean, but that's as far as they're going to go. They cannot enter in Krishna's direct association. Lord Brahma, he is the creator of all the bodies in this material world. So he's thinking that he has jurisdiction over Krishna's coward boyfriends. So Krishna, I will teach him a very good lesson. And in profound humility, he offered his prayers, and perhaps some of the most important glorifications of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. Everyone should read and study the 14th chapter of the 10th canto. We even see who did a much more heinous offense, Indra. He wanted, attempted mass murder, right? He's like one of these like crazy people, I'm gonna the devastating rainfall, I'm gonna drown everybody in Vrindavan, I'm gonna destroy the whole village. So he comes and offers prayers, and Krishna speaks to him. So more or less accepts the apology. But Lord Brahma, he took the calves and coward boys and hid them for a moment of his calculation, which ends up being a whole year, our time. Actually, we can commemorate this event on Balaram Purnima, on Balaram's appearance day, because Lord Balaram wasn't there to be abducted, child abduction, right? Amber alert, right? Because Mother Rohini kept him home because it was his birthday. Happy birthday to Lord Balaram. So then Lord Balaram said, what is this? I see this increased affection. What is the mystery behind here? And Krishna disclosed the actual situation. So after all of his prayers, now 7-year-old Krishna, he was 6 years old when the thing started, standing there with a laddu in his hand, showed no indication, or as perceived by Lord Brahma, there was no indication whether he was pleased or displeased. But the acharyas reveal that Krishna completely, because he's supreme, he's knowing everything, but leave me alone so I can be in my Vrindavan Leela. I don't want to have to, let Yamaraj decide all this other stuff, like the conditioned souls and this and that. And Krishna's so great. But he's thinking, who is this Lord Brahma? What are all these words? If a 7-year-old boy, a 7-year-old boy is hearing all of these big lofty prayers and glorification, I just want to get back to my friends. We were having such a great time playing together, and where are my calves? Who is this Lord Brahma? But Lord Brahma from his side was like, and Krishna knew his heart and gave him an opportunity to not only fully be accepted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he was given the most important position and the most important activity, in the most important incarnation in the descent of the Lord as the authority of his Dharma, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in this Kali Yuga. Is that all right? So I will indulge the 3 minutes we have left, unless someone else has a question, to more describe the glory of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, by showing who not to take shelter of, which is described in this chapter 14 of the 5th canto, The Forest of Material Enjoyment. The personal weapon used by Lord Krishna, the disc, is called the Hari Chakra, the disc of Hari. This chakra is the wheel of time. It expands from the beginning of the atoms up to the time of Brahma's death, and it controls all activities. It is always revolving and spending the lives of living entities, from Lord Brahma down to an insignificant blade of grass. Thus one changes from infancy to childhood to youth and maturity, and thus one approaches the end of life. You're so powerful. Can you stop getting old? Can you stop death? It is impossible to check this wheel of time. Samsaradava nalalila. Who can check Krishna's pure devotee? This wheel is very exacting because it is the personal weapon of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes the conditioned soul, fearing the approach of death, wants to worship someone who can save him from imminent death, yet he does not care for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose weapon is the indefatigable time factor. The conditioned soul instead takes shelter of a man-made god described in unauthorized scriptures. Such gods are like buzzards, vultures, herons, and crows. So the attack of death is like the roar of a lion. Can buzzards, vultures, herons, and crows save you from a lion attack? No. Vedic scriptures do not refer to them. Imminent death is like the attack of a lion, and neither vultures, buzzards, crows, nor herons can save one from such an attack. One who takes shelter of an unauthorized man-made god cannot be saved from the clutches of death. And Prabhupada has an interesting statement here in the purport. This is the greatest difficulty we encounter when trying to promote spiritual consciousness in human society. The Krishna consciousness movement is trying its best to bring people back to Krishna consciousness in its pure form, but the Pashandis and atheists who are cheaters are so numerous that sometimes we become perplexed and wonder how to push this movement forward. In any case, we cannot accept the unauthorized ways of so-called incarnations, gods, cheaters, and bluffers who are described here as crows, vultures, buzzards, and herons. Can we squeeze one more story of Bhaktisiddhanta? It's a very charming and entertaining story. You're all going to like it a lot. This is called... No. No. The blind man holding the cow's tail fallacy. Once upon a time, a blind person, so the conditioned soul is blind, right, was going to his father-in-law's house, tracking the way with the help of his walking stick. Very soon, while passing through a field, he came across a cowherd boy and asked, "Oh, brother, would you please do me a favor by leading me to my father-in-law's house?" At this, the cowherd replied, "I'm busy tending so many cows. If I take you to your father-in-law's house, all the cows will run away." So Srila Bhakti is preaching in India, village life, and so this is a story that you can safely catch. I can lend you a very docile and faithful cow of mine. You can safely catch hold of her tail, and she can smoothly lead to your father-in-law's house. Thus advised by the cowherd, the blind traveler firmly caught hold of the cow's tail, and the cow began walking while trailing him from behind. However, the cow got quite scared of the strong pulling of its tail by the blind person, and hence she behaved so frantically that the blind person was virtually being pulled roughly along the road and through thorny bushes while suffering frequent hard kicks of the cow's hind legs. As a result, the blind man's body was severely injured and his garments were all torn apart. So this is what it's like to follow a bogus person. Anyway, he arrived in the dead of night to his in-laws' house in a very wretched condition with cuts and bruises and totally naked. The servants of his in-laws' house took him to be a cow thief, and punched and slapped him in order to get him to release the cow's tail from its hold. Thus the blind man suffered unlimitedly. Purport, short one. Those who have ulterior motives take shelter of so-called gurus instead of a truly bona fide spiritual master. So in the next verse here in the 5th canto, it's described how sometimes the conditioned soul comes to the shelter of actual devotees, but due to misfortune cannot follow their instructions and leaves, and again takes the association of the buzzards, herons, vultures, and cranes. And Prabhupada says that sometimes we bring people forward and then they again leave us because their material desires are too strong. Any and every person cannot lead one to the supreme abode of Godhead, and no unauthorized representative can guide us to our true welfare. It is therefore obligatory that one should take shelter of a bona fide Krishna-conscious spiritual master without any hesitation. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.